This one's for somebody who's unhappy with their job and knows they want to be their own boss, and they want to try a strategy called wholesaling real estate that costs $0 using a 5 offer per day strategy that our guest Cole Stephenson used to make 5 offers per day and made a $10,000 finder's fee. I'm David Lecko, and this is the podcast to quit your W-2 and replace your income through wholesaling real estate. I created a process that's helped people just like you close their very first deal 10,000 times in all 50 states. And my co-host Ryan Haywood has done 425 deals ever since he got his first $8,500 finder's fee in 2019 in St. Joseph, Missouri. Hey Cole, how'd you make $10,000 on your very first wholesale deal?
Yeah, that is a great question. It all started out by I was taking in tons of content from good friend Jerry Norton, right? He's put out a ton of videos, and it's all, pretty much free content out there, which is great. This was the beginning of last year, so it was about 8 or 9 months ago. But he had his challenge that he's put out there to make, 5 offers a day on properties. And I was working my 9-to-5 job at the time. And so I was, doing my work in the morning, getting it all done. And then after that, I would go onto Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and all of those free places where people post, for sale by owner, just online. And I came up with a pretty decent texting script because I was actually texting these things out while working my 9-to-5 job. I've been in sales for the past 3 years. So as I was there dialing and calling into people for my 9-to-5 job, I was actually sending out texts, right, to all these people that had houses that were for sale by owner. And so as I was going through those, I would ask basically, hey, why are you selling, if you don't mind me asking? And most of them would respond and say, yeah, I'm just looking to, buy a bigger house, or work needs me to move out of state. Those things aren't typically, super motivated sellers. And what I was looking for was some type of urgency or obviously motivation, right? And most of these messages that I was sending out were just here in my own market here in Utah. So anywhere in Utah County, Davis County, Salt Lake County, Weber County. And so as I was doing this, I actually came across a lady who had just inherited a home that was in Provo, Utah. And she got it from I think it was her great aunt. She didn't even know that this house was lined up to come to her. In her will, she had no idea, but I guess she left a long-lasting impression on her great aunt. So she inherited that house. And I started, I messaged her, and then after I find the urgency or, the why of, why they're selling, I'll say, yeah, do you have time for a quick phone call? I think that's one thing that helped me, is I really wasn't afraid to hop on the phones, after being, in a cold calling position for 3 years prior. Anyway, so we hopped on the phone, and she said, well, I have it listed for this price. She had it listed for, I think it was $450K. The house had a potential to be split as a duplex, like an up and down duplex. And so anyways, and she said, and I said, are you flexible on price, or what are you thinking on price? And this is after we'd already, talked for a while on the phone, trying my best to build rapport. And she said, you know what, just give me an offer. I really don't want to keep this house. I already have my house that I'm living in, and, I just want to get this off my hands, not to deal with it anymore. I was like, perfect. So I hurried and ran my numbers, and my number running, back then, right, was I took whatever I quickly estimated ARV from Zillow, the Zestimate, and I just offered her 70% of what it was worth, which I think my first offer to her was $350K. anyway, so I offered $350K, and she just said, yeah, that sounds great. I said, all right. Right. Because I've talked to a billion other people before this. And before this, I had sent out probably somewhere around 30 offers where I'd had a conversation and sent an offer to them. And so going through this, she said, yeah, that's great. And so I knew that right then and there, I had to get an offer sent over to her and have her sign while I was on the phone, because that's what all the people had taught to do. And so I got on DocuSign, like I was freaking out, sent her the offer, and I walked her through the steps of logging in. She logged in, and then she said, hey, you know what? I actually have to run right now. My daughter is here. She's taking me to lunch. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And she had just barely listed it. Like it had just barely gone live on Facebook. Yeah, this was on Facebook Marketplace. And I was like, you're kidding me. Like I've heard all the horror stories. Like this is how you lose deals. Like she was ready to sign, build a good relationship with her, and she was ready to sign, and it was going to be totally a deal. So she says, but don't worry, like we can hop on later and we can discuss. It was like, okay, sounds good. Never going to see her again. Mm-hmm. But she told me she'd call me 3 hours later. And so 3 hours came by and she called me like right on the hour. And she said, hey, Cole, while I was at lunch, I actually had 3 other investors make an offer. I'm like, great. And she said, it's actually funny. She said, so the other offers I had were $385,000 and $390,000. And I looked at my numbers. I'm like, well, that's not a deal. Like I can't beat that. So I just said, okay, well, she said, can you match their offer? Like, I'd really like to work with you. I was like, I'm sure you would. Right. But I unfortunately, like, I can't even budge for my 350 at all. I didn't even go up $1. And then she said, I said no, and I was just getting ready to end the phone call. And she said, you know what, Cole, I've actually really enjoyed working with you. If you could come up $5,000, I'll take your offer. And, I think all those guys were being super pushy on the phone and they didn't really care about me. So I highly doubt it's going to be a good experience working with them. I was like, okay, yep, deal. We can go ahead and do that. So I updated the offer, sent it over to her, and she signed.
Wow.
Yeah. So I couldn't believe it. I was like, no way. So there is something to building rapport and like actually building a relationship with someone.
I've got a couple questions I wanted to dive into. Okay. So this was your first deal, right?
Yeah.
And your first offer was $350,000. Like, was that nerve-wracking at all? Because the first deal that I got under contract was $8,000. Like,
oh yeah,
I wasn't even scared of that. You're just $350,000. I would have messed my pants.
I love it. Yeah, no, well, luckily for me, my dad he owns a title company here in Utah. And so I'd kind of run him through, told him what I wanted to be doing. And he's like, yeah, you just got to make sure, like you have your due diligence, and kind of walk me through how that all works. And I think my number on there was
like due diligence. Explain the due diligence.
Yeah. Good question. So, on each contract you send out, there's a few dates. You have your offer and acceptance date, right? That's how long the seller has to accept your offer. And then your due diligence period. So after they sign and they say, yes, I agree to these terms, your due diligence, say for a typical home buyer, that's the time when you have to go do your inspections and make sure everything lines up. There's no hidden, major costs or repairs that need done on it. From a wholesaler's perspective, your due diligence period, it's kind of similar, but it's also the time when you're going out and you are making sure that the numbers work, right? Making sure you have a buyer lined up. And if you don't, you're able to back out of a contract or cancel your contract before that due diligence period and not lose your earnest money, right? So your earnest money being the money you put up to be able to go under contract with someone.
Hey guys, if you know you want to quit your job in the next 3 months, Make sure you're subscribed to this podcast because we've got some incredible frameworks with step-by-step instruction that you're not going to want to miss. Also, leave us a rating and review to let us know your favorite parts and why you want to get financial freedom.
So your dad gave you the coaching that you needed to feel confident in a $350,000 offer. You had your due diligence. Did you have to use it? So did you have to use anything of that due diligence period, or were you able to secure, obviously you were able to secure a buyer. Tell us what was that process like? How did you find your buyer?
Yeah, so as soon as she signed, I was freaking out. Obviously, like you're saying, messed my pants. It probably did mess my pants now that I think about it. Yeah. So I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I have a deal under contract. He's like, okay, cool. Tell me the details. And I'm like, look, it's in Provo. I own a rental property in Provo as well. And so I knew that rent was phenomenal right in that area, right? It's a college town. Like my property's performing well. It's literally, 2 streets over. And I knew for sure, like based off of what my property had just, appraised for, I was like, it's a really similar house. It's old. It's like, it was built in, this property that we're talking about was built in 1950. Nothing had been touched on the inside. So it needed a full, not necessarily demo, but it just, everything was well maintained. It just needed, cosmetic and everything redone inside. Anyway, so I walked him through, what we were looking at. And he's like, well, it sounds like it could really be a deal. And I was like, okay, now how the heck do I find a buyer? Because I think my due diligence was like 2 weeks. And at that point, I didn't know that I could push for a longer due diligence. She was under no rush. Like I should have pushed it out further. For sure, something I learned in that deal. But my dad, he does closings for investors all the time. And he knew of someone in the area that does several wholesales himself, but also, does some buy and holds, and flips. Like he's doing all of those things. So he said, why don't you just call him and, maybe he has a buyer or maybe he wants to buy it. So anyways, I reached out to him and he, had me walk through the numbers. He's like, let me go over there and look at it. Anyways, he actually went over there that same day and put me on a FaceTime call because I'm about an hour from Provo. And he walked through it and we looked at it. For sure needed some work. And he said, Cole, I think you have a deal here. Like, I think this is great. I was like, no way. This is amazing. So he's like, and I think I actually have a buyer too. And I didn't know the whole JV world, right? Where you can partner with another wholesaler that has a buyer. You usually have to split the profit or they'll take even more than split, right? And anyway, so he said, I think I have a buyer. I was like, great. Like, for my first deal, that's fine. Like I didn't know at the time, right, that you had to split anything like that. But he, it was like 3 days later, I already had a assignment contract in place and a $5,000 non-refundable earnest money at title for the deal. So that was awesome. But he said, the guy I was working with, he said, look, I think there's this much spread in it. I can get you a buyer, but I'm going to need half of the spread, right? I said, you know what, how much spread do you think there is? And he's like, I think there's between 20 and 25,000. I said, okay, great. Yeah, that's fine with me. Right. Going back, like now knowing what I know, like I wish that I would have gotten more offers. I just thought it was too good to be true that I finally had something. So I was just like, I'll take anything and everything right now.
Mm-hmm. That's
anyway, so
of doing your first deal though. I mean,
yeah,
you could regret it, but that was the easiest path forward and quickest path forward for you. And that's like, that's your education costs. What now, you'd be able to do it differently, but I would, if I could undo every bad deal that I did, I would be in similar situations many times, and I'd probably get a lot more money, but I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so and he kind of was playing it like, I didn't realize what game he was playing at the time. He's like, I don't know, it might be 20, it might be, it might just be 10,000. I was like, no. And like, I really pushed him. Like, I'm for sure, no, there's at least, 20 in here. So I'm fine to do that. We'll split it, but that's what we're doing. So he lined a buyer up. Anyways, we got it done. The deal closed 2 weeks later, right? Like right on closing date. And, it was great being able to work with my dad on title. He kind of walked me through the whole process. And then, closing day, he was able to disperse the funds. He sent me 10,000 and he sent, my partner on that one 10,000 as well. I was like, wow, this actually works.
Absolutely incredible. And you had zero marketing costs on this deal too, because you were doing Jerry Norton's challenge to make 5 offers per day. And you found this on Facebook Marketplace or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah. Facebook Marketplace.
So
I guess the cost was potentially losing my job, right? Sending messages while I was cold calling for my 9-to-5 job. But yeah.
Did you actually find 5 people per day that had motivation, or did you make offers on the people who said, oh, I just want to move out of state, or oh, I want a bigger house? What really motivated? Like, did you still make offers on those?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And now I understand that his 5 offer a day challenges, you need to be offering to motivated people. And I didn't even know what that meant really back then, right? So yeah, I was sending offers to everyone, right? So I would get on the phone with people and, just send them these lowball offers. And they're like, look, we already have offers for way more than that. Like, we're in no rush. I was like, crap, why? Like, what's going on? But yeah, I sent them to everyone.
Count that as an offer.
Yeah.
You send them an actual contract after that as well?
I would actually send them it was a 1-page document that, it was just like a 1-page offer.
Love it. Yeah, I use like a chart
Incredible.
thing, so it's not overwhelming for them to read.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So do you make 5 offers per day now still?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now we have a sales team of about 15 people. Now. And so they're all working now. Don't let me, make that sound better than this. They are people that are in college, or still working. So they're doing about 10 hours a week each. So, right. So it's not 15 full-time callers. But yeah, they were calling into pre-foreclosures in all 50 states. And, we are not hitting 5 offers a day. We are hitting probably 10 offers a week.
Okay.
But all to real motivated people that have gone through the whole process. We've asked them all of our qualification questions and everything else.
Okay, so you're more discerning now. And at the beginning, it didn't matter if they weren't the perfect motivated person, but you were building the muscle of making offers. And that's what it was about.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so now you're taking them through more of like a sophisticated funnel and presenting the offer to only those who make it out the end. So you've advanced a little bit more, which is interesting how your progression went. And it all started with the 5 offer challenge.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you do the pre-foreclosures, which is I believe what you said you market to, right?
Yeah, that's right.
How many properties are in pre-foreclosure are you totally Salt Lake City, Utah?
We're calling into every state.
Oh, every state. So yeah, that's quite a bit of numbers. Great. That makes a lot more sense. Because in Austin, it was like 30 properties a month that get auctioned. So I was like, man, is there enough to feed 15 people? How long have you been doing wholesaling?
Just since last March is when I started to dabble in the YouTube videos, and then June of last year.
Okay.
Is when the deal went through.
Was this an escape from a job for you? What was the reason why you got into it in the first place?
Yeah, totally. Like I said, I was in sales for a while. So I worked full-time sales for the past, 3.5 years. In my college days, I decided and always knew that I wanted to be in real estate. And at the time I would, find properties. I was just looking for properties online, right? Just on the, on Zillow or that are on market, I'd send them to my dad. I'm like, hey, should we buy this as a rental property? He's like, Cole, the numbers don't work at all. And then I would actually find a decent deal for a, long-term rental. And then, I'd go to, then it's like, oh wait, I don't have money to buy it. Right. So I wanted to get into real estate. I wanted to, get back being real estate full-time. I always knew I wanted to do this full-time, working for myself. I didn't know which path of real estate it would, that I would do. I know that I want to end up in obviously owning properties and building a portfolio of cash flowing properties. So that's when I came across Jerry Norton and everything in wholesaling, that, hey, here's a way to get into real estate with, little to no money at all. Right. And you can start off just doing the free, routes of finding deals. So yeah, I had to build up, an emergency fund. I have my family that I need to provide for. But I needed to, so it's been, a couple of years of building that runway up, as well as, finding a process that is proven and then can work. And so I quit my job just last year in October or September, actually, to do this full time.
Well, congratulations on quitting your job to do this full time.
Yeah, it has been the best thing ever.
To be totally clear, like, was it as good as you thought it would be?
Was it as sexy?
To be your own boss and to now have that responsibility?
Yeah, really good question. And so, and that's something I actually talk to people pretty often about is the grass really greener on the other side? And I always thought that it was, but there was this voice in the back of my head that was like, is it really going to be good? Like, just keep your head down, keep doing the 9-to-5 grind. Like, it's steady income every month. But there was always something in my mind that's like, you can do so much more than this. Your impact can be so much greater on yourself, on your family, and those around you. I didn't know what that looked like, but that was what was in my head all the time. Like, you can do more, you can be more, you can help more people. And so, really diving into that and thinking like, okay, I really can do something more. And it's so scary. It's the scariest thing ever to finally make the leap. But being my own boss, like I hated waking up in the morning to go to my 9-to-5 job. Right. And I was like, why am I just not more grateful? I should just be more grateful. Life is way too short to not do that which you love. Right. It's way too short. It's not what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to be, doing something that you hate. Right. There's always going to be challenges and hard things you have to do in life. But work is not one of them. Work is one of them that you fully get to choose. I need a challenge constantly. I need a problem to solve. I can't do one monotonous task over and over again. And people have asked me that same question, like, is it really that great? I'm like, honestly, it has been, I cannot wait to wake up the next day and start working again. Because the amount of joy that I've received from working my own thing, building something that I have full control over, everything that I put into it, I'll get out. So it's been the funnest thing ever.
Thanks for sharing your story. You're a great storyteller. And a great way to end.
Oh, thanks.
Can you tell us what you're excited for in 2024, which will be your first full year being your own boss?
Yeah, that's good. What I'm most excited for is from a business side of things, is one of our major goals is to acquire 20 properties by the end of the year, single family homes, and keep those as long-term rentals. So, we're running all of the numbers on all of our different exit strategies, right? Our main focus is to be holding these properties. So we're super excited about that. In fact, a couple of these 10 that we have under contract right now, we are going to be buying. But yeah, that's what I'm super excited about. And then also super excited to be spending way more time with my family this year. Just working from home. I have a little girl growing up, and so it's just so fun to be able to spend time with them. And I look forward to doing that.
It's awesome.
Well, it's well deserved. I'm so glad it's working
Yep.
out well for you, Cole. Where can people find you on social
Thank you.
media? Is that something that you do?
I'm honestly, I've pretty much quit Instagram and Facebook. I'm on both of them, but rarely. So
Yeah.
I don't really have anywhere that you could find me.
Well, thank you so much, Cole. Very exciting. And for those listening, Cole does pre-foreclosure lists, which ties into the best episode of our year so far, 97, 6 ways to help someone in foreclosure. So check that out for additional listening. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.